Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about letting people think negative thoughts about you and how to love difficult people. Join us as we share how we're applying the let them theory to both of these hard and uncomfortable tasks. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're continuing our once-a-month series about the book Let Them by Mel Robbins, a New York Times bestseller. This book was written to give people the tools to create a better life and better relationships. Once a month, we're reading a chapter or two and discussing how we're putting this theory into practice in our real lives. And as with all our book series, you do not have to be reading the book to enjoy this episode. So before we kick it off, I feel like we should just briefly say what the Let Them theory is. And I still had my notes from last month. So we basically said the Let Them theory is a step-by-step guide on how to stop letting other people's opinions, drama, and judgment impact your life. And outside of the book, it means the theory is all about simply letting others do what they will. And I feel like today's chapters really get into the nitty-gritty. Today, we're going to be talking about letting people think bad thoughts about you, which for me is so hard, and I'm sure for other people too, and how to love difficult people. But did you both feel like these are really hard?
Yes, because she said, all advice is to, hey, stop caring about what people think. But how do you do that? That's the hard part.
I know. I started reading and I was just like, ugh, no. Because you don't want to admit that you care what other people think because we've been told, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But we all care. And as she started naming things and writing it out and describing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was really helpful because I'll admit I started off the chapter thinking, but I don't care what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she said, do you ever say these things? Do you ever feel this way? It's like, oh yeah, well then this is why, this is because you are caring about other people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you hear all the time that as you get older, you care less and less what other people think. And I think that's probably true. Compared to a teenager, I care less, but we still all care a lot.
Well, I think you care less about certain things, but maybe not others.
Right.
I think what you care about changes.
Well, that's true, Julie. Okay. Yeah.
So we're all uncomfortable with this. We all care what other people think. And we're trying to live our best lives here.
If you're listening and you're saying, I don't care, maybe think about listening to this and finding out if you really do care or not, because I think you probably do.
Yeah.
Didn't we just do a podcast on what we don't care about anymore?
Yes.
That's what we like less and less.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but pretty much, yeah.
Right. Like you said, things change. You care about different things. So, yeah. All right, Julie. Well, you are a resident summarizer of chapters. So why don't you give a little summary of chapter 5 for anyone that hasn't read it before we get into talking about it?
Okay, I think she started off quoting from one of her favorite poets, Mary Oliver. And Mary Oliver asked this question, what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? And she said, she just loves that quote, but she said, as sure as you do, whatever you're going to do with your one wild and precious life, other people are going to have opinions about that.
That's right.
She just got us to thinking about how fear of what other people think gives them power and takes away power from us, because that becomes the roadmap for our life, just navigating how to please everyone else and not disappointing other people. So that's kind of how we started off.
Right from the very first page. First of all, the chapter's entitled, Let Them Think Bad Thoughts About You. And then it says, you have no idea how big a problem this is. Neither did I. And so she says, we really all do care. And this first sentence is something that I just need to accept, but it's so hard to accept. The truth is, people will have negative opinions about you, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to change this fact. And I think that we sometimes think that we can control other people by like explaining or giving an impression or keeping up an appearance, or I mean you can even be doing everything right and someone can still have a bad opinion of you. Like, you can't control it. And I know that, like, when she talks about how you literally cannot control, people have 70,000 thoughts a day, like, you can't control those. But I will get upset that one of their 70,000 is probably something negative about me.
Well, and I love how she gets into this in the next chapter. She gets you to think about, well, of course, you have negative thoughts about people you love, but that doesn't mean you don't love them or you think overall negatively about them. It's just
Right.
you can have negative thoughts and still love somebody, you know?
Right.
All right. Well, what does the fear of what other people think, like, how does that impact you? How does it show up in your life? What do you notice?
I'd have to say there's a few places in my life where I have small places of influence, is what I would call them, places I serve. Like this podcast is a small place of influence in my life. Serving at the pregnancy center, teaching fitness classes, those places. And so sometimes I wake up and there's this unrealized fear that just happens to be there that we'll call anxiety. That, I just am like, I'm not a voice. I shouldn't be in front of anyone, like I'm struggling just to put one foot in front of the other today. And so even if no one said anything, sometimes I doubt myself so much, or I just want to stay protected. And so when you are vulnerable and you open yourself up by putting yourself in a place to serve or help or encourage or anything, it opens you up to other people, which in turn makes you vulnerable, which in turn could bring anxiety at different times, because whether someone says anything or not, you've got your own self, your own mind you're trying to battle.
Definitely. Yeah. I think like if there's something I've been talking about doing, I'll procrastinate because then I don't really have to face it because I'm thinking, in my head, it's like, well, who is she? People would say, who is she to have an opinion on this or to think she could do that, like that's not the main thought, but it's just kind of always back there, like popping up. Perfectionism is another one she talked about, like not doing something until you can do it perfectly, which will never happen. But I know I do that. And as I was thinking about this, she did not mention this, but it really dawned on me that for anybody out there that might be grieving, I think isolation might be rooted in this because it's like you're convinced that nobody's going to understand, that, they're not going to understand that you could be this angry with God or that you could be this doubtful and you don't want to let people know that, and, or if you're still crying, people will assume, well, you're weak or something's wrong, like you're not progressing or I don't know. There's just all kinds of this is always in my mind. It really surprised me with grief that I would care that much about what people think. But it's like you don't want to. I can barely explain it to myself. So the thought of explaining it to someone else, just makes me want to stay back. If that makes sense, because I feel like sometimes people are waiting for the old Julie to resurface, and she's gone. Like she doesn't exist anymore. So, and that's not failure. That's just
True.
change, and so it's sometimes easier to, to not, if you can't make people understand, it's easier to just not be there.
Yeah. How can fear of what others think of us show up in our lives? I think it can show up in my life in doing things out of guilt or obligation, or I might do something that I don't even agree with just to go along, because I'm worried what other people think if I don't do that. Or, like I think my actions are sometimes dictated by a fear of what other people will say. You might find yourself doing things that you wouldn't otherwise do. And we're going to talk about that later. Like if you didn't have the fear of judgment of people, what would you do instead?
I think that's our next question.
Oh, is it?
Nice. Great job, Marie.
Okay.
Lead right into it.
It is the next question. What changes would you make if you weren't worried about being judged? One of the big things that came to my mind, I don't know if I would have necessarily made changes in this area, but I would have been a lot more confident in my decision, and I wouldn't have wasted so much time worrying about what other people thought about me being a stay-at-home mom. Like, how many times have we talked about this on the podcast? And how many years did I spend thinking, Oh, they probably think I wasted my degree. Oh, they think that I'm setting myself up for failure because when my kids leave, I'll fall apart. I won't even have a life anymore. Oh, they think I'm wasting my potential. Oh, they think I'm boring because I'm at home with kids all day. Like, there's a lot of things that we can think about, even what we chose to do over a long period of time, that I wasted time being worried about what other people thought, even though I did not have a desire to go back to work and was perfectly happy with my decision. I was worried about what, in quotes, other people would say, even though they probably weren't even saying anything about it. I know that you guys have felt that way on occasion too.
Oh yeah. In fact, this was funny because my example was it's not like a change I would make maybe overall in life, but this question came at a very good time for me because I've been considering doing some volunteer work. And this week I actually stepped out of my comfort zone and did this. A young listener of ours presented this opportunity for me to volunteer at a free Vanderbilt health clinic as a pharmacist.
Oh.
And I thought, "Oh, I just don't think I'm qualified. Like, I just don't know. I'd love to do it, but I just don't know that I'm qualified." So I just talked with the lady. She reassured me that I would pick up on it really quickly. So I went Tuesday night, and in the clinic's like 6 to 9. I was there till almost midnight. It was like a crazy night with lots of difficult things and, things going on. And I just I don't know, I fell in love with the clinic. I'm still gonna shadow this pharmacist and see if it's a good fit for me, but that was a huge step for me, and I think not caring about what people think is I get scared and then I just don't do things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that came up, like most of the people in the clinic were women, like women doctors, women residents, women medical students, and they said, "Oh, so where do you work?" Because these are all volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, I don't work." And they were like, "Oh, you're retired." I said, "Well, no, not really. I just haven't worked in a long time." And they said, "Oh, so you're gonna come out of retirement. Well, what have you been doing with yourself?"
Oh, no.
And it was that dreaded question because these
Yep.
are highly motivated, educated women who have obviously chosen this career. I mean, they're doctors. And I said, "I stayed home with my children and I homeschooled." And and I was just waiting, and the
Really bringing
pharmacist
it.
the pharmacist said, "Oh, so you have been educating." Like, she validated it and said, I
Oh.
was like, "Oh, thank you for saying that." Like, that you haven't thought I've just wasted the last 25 years of my life.
Oh, Julie.
But see, I still was carrying what she said, but I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna own it and be proud of it."
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's awesome,
I'm so
Julie.
proud of you. You got the dreaded question. You're like, "There it is."
Yeah, first night, first night. "What have you been doing with yourself?"
Yeah, nothing.
I didn't wanna go down the road of baking sourdough bread and
Right, right.
Oh my
Making your own candles.
Yeah, yeah. So I stuck with homeschooling. I thought that sounded a little more noble.
Julie, like, I'm trying to, take in the joy on your face as you talk about that, brings me to tears. I am so excited for you
Well, keep
to have
praying it
taken
works
this
out
step, and
because
I am. I have been praying for you so much, and you encourage me and everyone else with your journey, I just appreciate your genuineness, but that took a lot of courage to do
well,
that. So
it
I'm
did.
sorry. I'm trying to pull myself together. I'm really, really proud of you.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you. I loved it, and it was fun. I mean, she was like, "Well, would you like to get certified in vaccinations?" And I was like, "Can I?" And she was like, "Sure, I can do that for you." And, I don't know, she gave me a whole bunch of stuff to read, and I don't know, I like to still be learning. That doesn't
Mhm.
scare
Yeah.
me, so it's like, "Okay, I think I can
Mhm.
do this. I think I can do this." But it really did I really did kinda have to answer those questions in my mind, like, "Well, who are you?" I mean, these are
Mhm.
Vanderbilt medical students, cream of the crop, and I thought, "They're gonna say, 'Who is this old lady?', that doesn't know anything." And then I forget that students don't know much of anything in the real world. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
comforting thing, like, as little as I know, I still know more than them,
Yeah.
Yes.
about medications.
But, so much of that battle is just being at peace with your own story And so it's like, what will I say? Because you are going to get the questions no matter
Yeah.
where you're at in life. People are interested.
Well, and some of the questions you just also have to say, I don't know, but I can find the answer.
Mhm.
And I have to be comfortable with that. I just want to know everything, you know? And she said, no, it's okay to say, I don't know, but I can get you the answer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just getting comfortable with that.
Right.
Wow.
Right. What changes would you make, Mindy, if you weren't worried about being judged?
Well, honestly, I think if I were to ask people if I'm brave, they would think I was. And then I would think you have no idea. You have no
Mhm.
idea how scared I am all the time. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Mindy.
Mm.
I mean, well, you do have a very bubbly, confident, optimistic personality, and so that's why people think that. But you're also a real person with real fears and real anxieties.
Well, and I've heard people say that being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It just means you're willing to still do it
Mhm.
despite the fact that you're afraid.
Yeah. Um, I would just say that doing the things that God has called me to do, I'm still scared.
Mhm.
I still don't feel qualified. Um, on the way to the pregnancy center, I'm praying like, Holy Spirit, you have to show up. Like you have to show me. I don't know who's going to walk through the door, and I'm not qualified. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a missionary. I'm not an evangelist. I'm not a medical professional. Like, show me what I need to do to be there for whoever I'm going to be with. And then on a lighter note, teaching fitness classes is scary for me. I'm anxious a lot before I go in there to do that. And the fact that I've been teaching again for 2.5 years is really kind of stunning to me because I don't feel qualified in any way. And so to be at peace with being in front of people, it's hard. It's hard to do that. And I love it. And I always walk away and I'm thankful I've done it. But to be able to be there and God is presenting opportunities through different people that come, like it's a ministry opportunity for me. And he's using me in ways that are really extraordinary. And I don't feel capable ever.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think just continuing to do something that you're uncomfortable in, I want to quit all the time.
Mm.
Mhm.
I totally get that. There's just always a tension there
Mhm.
of pushing yourself and then saying, I just can't. I don't have any business doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if anybody just feels like, yes, I can do this and I'm the person I want, you know? I guess they
Man, I've
do. I
got
guess
it.
they're out there, but you
Yeah.
just wonder if
Yeah.
you could look in their head if anybody feels totally confident in doing what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. I was thinking about all the parenting decisions that we have to make over the years, and there's not a parenting decision that you can make that you wouldn't find, well, almost not a parenting decision that you could make that you wouldn't find someone to say, well, I'd do that the exact opposite way. Even still, it says, what would you do differently? I was thinking about just in even regular life, like maybe just own up to my decisions and be confident of them.
Mm.
We have 3 kids in college, and one is finishing up his master's and moving back to the Nashville area. And so many people have asked me if he's going to live at home. And this is like a constant thing that keeps coming up. And I don't feel like it's best for him to live at home. I feel like it's best for him to try to make it. I mean, he's finished his master's degree. He's gone through college. He's age appropriate. He will have a job. But I get that question all the time. And if I didn't have to fear of judgment, I would just say, you know what? We've raised him. He has a degree. He has a job. I think he should go out there and, like Dave Ramsey says, kill something and bring it home. Like, I think he should do that. If for some reason he fails and life falls apart, we are here. But I'm not just going to assume that it's not going to work out. And I already have one calling me that's going to graduate next year saying, I need to move back home. All my friends have already said that they're going to move back home, Mom. They've said you cannot make it. They said you have to move back home, Mom, or they're never going to be able to afford to buy a house. And would you let me move back home, Mom? And And I say, like, I'm not going to assume that you're not going to be able to make it. Like, I'm not going to cross that bridge right now. Like, why would I assume that you're graduating with a degree? Like, I'm assuming that you will go out there and make it. I feel like I've raised them to go out into the world. I'm excited about seeing what they'll do next. I want to relate to them as adults. If I didn't fear judgment, I would just own that and lay it out there. But I fear such judgment. And would be able to say, like, okay, for my family at this time, this is what works. But I worry about what other, in quotes, think about it. I worry about what my friends might think about it. I worry about what my kids might think about it. I worry about, like, all these different things. Everybody has an opinion on it. And so that's just a real life example that right now I'm wrestling with almost daily with someone asking me, he's coming home in a few weeks. What are you doing? And it's like, like we're going to go out and start looking at leases. But am I horrible? Am I a horrible person?
No, Marie, you're not.
No. It's like the school. It's like how to school your children issue. I mean, that was always something that people asked about. And I don't know if they're asking to judge or if they're just curious, because I don't know that anybody really cares. If your kid lives at home or not, I don't know. But you get it both ways. If your kid does live at home, then it's like, well, what's wrong? And you feel like you have to explain, well, he's starting his own business and, but maybe they're just curious.
Maybe. But it seems like there's a lot of chatter about it.
Right. I think we can all agree that this is part of our fear are the actual questions that you're asked about your life by your community. And then the fear of that continuing to be asked or other questions being asked. And this is the joy and the pain of living in community. People care about us and they're curious. They want to know. They love us. They care and they're trying to figure out how to do it themselves. So they're kind of looking for, some feedback, interaction. But those questions cause so much anxiety. Those questions sometimes make me want to just stay in my house.
See, isolation, because it's just easier.
I think I'm just going to hang out at home today.
I don't even want to bring the subject up.
I know. How can we create a safe space and not ask those questions and make other people feel like that, because...
Say, I don't have any children.
No, which honestly kind of leads us right into our third question, because our third question is, what do we do to self-censor? And I find myself self-censoring by not even bringing the subject up. But Julie, why don't you tell us what she said about self-censorship?
Well, she just said if you're self-censoring, then there's only one reason, and that is because you fear other people's opinions. And she said her examples were you might self-censor your art, your music, your photos, like you can't post a photo without editing it, or your business, or I even thought about a podcast, and it can cause you to overthink, or she mentioned it can cause you to be silent. And I think that's interesting. That's what we've all kind of landed on, that is maybe the most tempting option.
I really don't think it's a bad option.
Well, she said it's a form of self-rejection, and we can see if we agree with her. But she said you're the one telling yourself you're not good enough, not other people. Like, you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah. I've said before, like, I don't want to share any goals unless I know that I can meet them. I don't want to put myself out there unless I know I can be successful at something.
I think there is a place of maybe that's not such a bad thing. And the reason why I think that is because I think sometimes there's things to keep close to your chest that are just precious. I'll call them precious, maybe very meaningful to you. And you're just not ready. You're not ready to answer the dreaded question. And so you need to just stay small for a while. And so an example of that is just when I was going through my own health journey, I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. It was me and my trainer, and Bryce knew because we had to pay for it. Not even the kids. I wasn't strong enough. to answer any questions. I wasn't setting any goals because I didn't think I was going to make it to the next week. And so I just needed to stay small for a while. And it really took like 8 months and people started noticing a difference. And I was okay with it then.
Mm-hmm.
But it was I never feel like I need to announce anything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because she goes into social media and things like that. But like recently, I have just felt a peace about just not putting things out in public that are really precious, because almost it diminishes how precious it is if I were to put it on social media. So I do think that there's, not necessarily out of, judgment or fear of rejection, but more just grappling between social media and life, and where does that line fall there? How
Yeah.
public do you need to be?
I mean, some things aren't meant for the whole world to
Mhm.
know, right?
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying, but like in my case, I did feel like letting it out of the bag was a way to have people encourage me and maybe some accountability to keep going forward. Because
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
at the first sign of opposition or fear, I could have just backed out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, now somebody might say, when are you going back to that clinic, Julie?
Mm-hmm. I will
You know.
ask you.
Oh yeah, me too. 100%. Beginning of every episode, it's on. No, I'm kidding.
Because it's still a very scary thing, not
Yes.
just because of what people ask, but like doubting myself. So,
Mhm.
so in
Mhm.
some ways, I think silence can be a negative thing, and sometimes it can be positive.
Absolutely. So I have a child that's going through this right now. And literally he was telling Bryce and I about something that we have been praying for in his life, and it looks like it's going to work out for the best. But it's not 100% yet, so he didn't want to tell us.
Mm.
And so he happened to tell it to us, and he was like, "See, I don't want to tell you guys because you're going to be excited, but it's not for sure yet."
Mhm.
And we're like,
Mhm.
"Thank you for telling us. I do understand those feelings, but we are excited."
Yeah.
And so we will underreact for you because we understand that's scary.
Right. Yeah.
But, we want him to be open with us, but he's afraid to tell even us, as he's in the process, because he's very similar to me. The more he talks about things, and I'm like, gosh, okay, that's how my parents feel about me. It actually is very, very eye-opening to see him go through this.
Mhm. Well, and sometimes the end result is not the only thing to be excited about. Like, I think we talked about this in the book, What If It's Wonderful? Like,
Mhm.
sometimes it's the stepping out, it's the taking the
Mhm.
risk that's exciting, even if it never comes to fruition. Like, we don't
Mhm.
always have to just celebrate at the end of something. So I
Mhm.
think people taking steps, like now you can encourage him and pray for him. There are
Yeah.
good things about that, even if it didn't
Mhm.
come to fruition. So,
Right. How does the let me theory help in this situation? Like, what would we say to ourselves? Let me. It's not enough to say not care what other people think. Let me.
Come up with an answer for the dreaded question.
yeah, and people having negative thoughts about you doesn't mean as a whole. I mean,
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
it's like a friend could say, I think Marie's wrong about the whole not letting her son live there. But so what? Like, as a whole, they still love you. They still want to be your friend. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know that. I think we're just putting too much emphasis
Yeah.
on that.
Mhm.
Like it's our whole identity when it's just a very
Yeah.
small decision, one of
Mhm.
many that we make. And so just trying to kind of be at peace with that and pursue what you're meant to do.
Mhm.
Mhm. I would say let me focus on the good comments or the truth that I know about a situation, even if no one understands. They don't have to. But if I can choose to focus and think about and ponder and meditate on the things that I know to be true and training my mind, training where I fix my eyes, then let me meditate on that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really easy to get bogged down in even just one or two negative comments, even if
Mhm.
most people are positive about something.
True.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it said before that you need 15 positive comments to counteract one negative comment. So, I mean, they're really powerful, the negative ones.
Which you're probably never going to get.
True.
I know. And can I
15's a
say
lot.
a really big let me forgive them, because those negative comments, if they are debilitating in a way, or they do ask the dreaded question, it doesn't have to stick. Like, it doesn't have to penetrate your core. You know what I mean? So let me forgive them.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the statements that we can utter that become sources of self-doubt?
I think we've said a lot of them already.
I know.
I'm just not smart enough, or
I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
yeah, what do my friends think? Or, oh, they'll be so disappointed if I do that.
Who do you think you are? You're not good enough to do that. There's other people that are more qualified.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those are all tied to other people, she points out, Now, I just want to interject this because the book doesn't have a spiritual tone at all, but it feels a lot like she was saying, just do what makes you happy. She even used the word "my truth," which I hate that. Do it my way, my needs first. And she does say now that this isn't permission to just be inconsiderate and bulldoze other people. Like, I get that, but I've had this experience in my own life. Like, sometimes you can just run past very bright red flags. And sometimes we choose to still do the wrong thing because it's just what we want to do, but that doesn't make it right. And I think God speaks in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously through scripture, shutting doors, unrest in your heart, but he also speaks through wise friends. And so, I mean, there's a verse that says wisdom is found in those who take advice. So I just don't want to discount that you couldn't glean wisdom from what a friend would tell you.
Yeah, you shouldn't just dismiss what anyone else thinks.
But I kind of think she's saying just go with your heart, just trust your own heart, and So and maybe her examples aren't like moral decisions and all this. So, but I don't know. I never want to just discount listening to a friend's opinion.
Absolutely. And you said a friend's opinion. I say we haven't even talked about, consider the source, consider who's saying whatever it is,
True.
And then, because that determines the weight of their words. Do they really know me? Do they really love me? Do I feel safe in their presence? And then, oh, okay, if they said something hard, well, I should really listen to that. Because I know that they care for me.
Yeah, because it may not be what you want to hear.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope if I'm about to jump off a cliff, I'd have some friends there saying, Julie, slow down, watch it. This is not going to be good for you.
Right. I'd probably tackle you physically. There's no talking.
I guess I shouldn't have said jump off a cliff. Like, if I'm veering off,
Yeah. I hear you. There is a section in this chapter that that we all read that's also meaningful. And it's just that even with the best of intentions, you're not going to be able to please everyone, even working to the best of your ability. And so at some point, you're not going to be able to meet everyone's expectations for you. And being okay and coming to a place of peace with that, you're going to let people down. And so that's hard to accept, but also a fact.
Yeah, well, something she said about that I appreciated was she said, do what makes you proud of yourself. Like, don't do something out of guilt to please your mom out of guilt. Do it because you want to be a good daughter. And I thought that was a better perspective. And then, then you'll have no regrets. I liked that way of thinking.
Me too. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
The next chapter, chapter 6, was called How to Love Difficult People. Now, that's a weighty subject. It says right at the beginning, most of the time you won't even know about it when someone's thinking something negative about you. Family, though, family is different, and family is with you for life. And when I think about loving difficult people, I don't think about family because my family is so difficult. I just think about family because you experience a lot of ups and downs and negative and positive things in a way that you may not really experience with friendships. Like family, you really show yourself and you really learn each other about over an extended years and years amount of time. So I feel like family can be even harder for us not to care what they think. Julie, what does she say about how to love difficult people?
Family really hits differently because they are with you for life. Like, hopefully, you're not going to want to end the relationship because you disagree. Whereas that could happen with a friend. I mean, hopefully not, but that could happen with a friend. But this is something you're going to want to put every effort to restore and make work, because these people are going to be around forever, for your whole life. And she said family just tends to be more blunt, and they seem a little harsher because they're going to speak their opinions. But I loved it. She said, as moms, worrying and having opinions, we equate with loving you.
Mhm.
That just means we love you. But I know family doesn't always see it that way.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And for somebody that has talked a few episodes this spring about one of my faults, I guess, or personality quirks or characteristics is that I want to be understood. The people I want to be understood by the most is family. And so, like, if a friend doesn't understand me, okay, that's unfortunate, and I might try to make myself be understood. But if one of my kids doesn't understand me, or my husband doesn't understand me, I have a hard time just saying, well, I guess I'll just have to let them think what they're going to think. I mean, I will make every effort to
Mhm.
try to explain myself. Do you guys find yourself doing that?
It definitely, I hear what you're saying too, and I agree, because these people are our people. They've seen us,
Mm-hmm.
every day. And we've given so much to these relationships. And so to the weight of what they think about us is so great.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if we've hurt them, they have to know why. Like, they have to know it wasn't intentional. Like, because everything in us wants them to have better lives because of our presence. And sometimes our presence is not making their lives better.
Yeah.
Well, she talks about, I thought this was a good illustration. It was like a spider web that you might see with dewdrops on it.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
And when you touch it over here, the whole web shakes, and
Mm.
that's how a family is. They're just so interconnected that often whatever opinion you have or decision you make can affect the whole web. And so
Yeah.
Mhm.
she gets into like why that's so important to understand where everybody's coming from.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, she describes a tool called frame of reference, which I
Mm.
feel like is so super helpful in families. And she talks about how when she was going to get married, her mom really didn't approve of her spouse. But it wasn't really anything about the spouse. It was because the spouse was from a different area of the country. And she knew that if she got married to him, they would probably live far away. And I can't remember if it was her mom that also lived far away from her parents, so she knew like how that had impacted their relationship over the years, and now she didn't want to have that impact her relationship with her daughter over the years. And I think at the time, Mel Robbins, she says that she really couldn't understand it. And it brought to mind like frame of reference, what a healing blessing it is to live a long life and reach the age that your parents made pivotal decisions that you may not have understood. This really brought to mind this story for me. We lived in Maryland when Abigail was born, our first child, and we moved back to New York State to be near my family. And it was nearer to Steve's family too, because my mom had lived 2,000 miles away from her mom my whole growing up years. And it was a grief that she carried. And so I thought, well, I don't want to have that. We'll move closer. So we moved about an hour away. And we lived there a couple years. And then my parents decided to move to Tennessee. And I was so upset because I felt like I had moved back and now they were just leaving me. But I remember my mom writing me a letter trying to explain, but I can understand it so much better from the age I am now than I could at that time. At that time, I just was so upset. And really, when you think about it, they had 3 other kids that had moved and settled in Tennessee, gone to college down here, met and married people. My parents were still young. I mean, I don't even know if they were 50 yet, or maybe just barely 50. My dad had another decade to work. Like, he got another job down here. I didn't even comprehend at that time, like, they were just finishing up raising 4 kids, getting people through college, adjusting to the empty nest, thinking about, well, what do the next 25 years of our life look like? We don't necessarily want to stay where we are. Like, there was a lot that my mom said in that letter that I read but did not understand. And now that I am that age and have multiple kids and have experienced so much more of life, I can understand so much better. And I have a frame of reference for why they made that decision. And it turned out to be a good thing. I mean, we ended up coming down here a couple years later, and we've always been able to live close to them and my siblings. But I just remember at that time, I just was wrecked by that decision. And I could not understand it. And so I think, her talking about frame of reference, I think if we can understand why, even if it's years later, different pivotal decisions in our family life were made, it can be so healing. Because I moved with such resentment and I carried that resentment. I tried to push it away, but they were still young. Now I realize how young they were. At that time, I felt like, they were old and they should be settled.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how frame of reference can come back and be really healing in relationships. Or even, I don't even really even talk about that with my parents anymore, but just for me to understand now, I read the words before, but now I really understand.
Wow.
Yeah, she said, though, that younger people don't often think about their parents' frame of reference. Like, unfortunately, you have to almost live life to see it, which is the sad part. Is that you couldn't see it then.
No.
And
Right.
because she Mel said, I realized my mom was trying to be supportive of my engagement, but she just was scared that she'd lose her daughter to distance, and her mom said, this is not what I would choose. And she's allowed that opinion. And I know that really resonated with me because when I met John, he wasn't from my hometown. And that was the first thing I think my parents thought about was, I'm an only child. And then he's just going to take me away, And that always caused some friction because that's one thing John talked about all the time was, I'm getting out of here as soon as I graduate. He didn't want to stay where we were. Turns out he ended up growing very fond of it. And we did stay for a long time. But, to just that my mom did have that opinion and I think that fear was triggered by some things, she lived far from her mom and had always regretted that. And that opinion is not judgment, it's grief. And I so appreciated her saying that because now I'm grieving that I don't live near my daughter. And I don't think she can possibly understand the grief that's there. I just don't.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you can have those two opinions, that it creates space to have that they're both true. I can have that opinion and yet it can still be the right thing to do too,
That's why I say it's a blessing to live long enough to see that. Just this morning, I was talking with Abigail on the phone. She has her house up for sale and it's been like 2 weeks. And she is a basket case. She can hardly eat. She's having to take 3 little kids out multiple times a day to have it shown. 2 weeks feels like 6 months. Like she is a mess. And she was like, oh my goodness, Mom. She goes, when you moved 2 years ago, I remember hearing you talk and I remember thinking, hold it together, woman. It's going to be fine. She goes, but now I understand why you were so upset. And it's true, like now that she's experiencing it, and like I didn't have 3 toddlers, but I had 3 teenagers home for the summer who were directly working in opposition to me keeping the house clean.
They're dirtier than toddlers.
Yeah, they're almost dirtier than toddlers, and they don't go down for a nap. And like,
That's
geez, It just it was so stressful. I remember food tasted like sawdust. I could hardly even carry on a conversation. I was just thinking, please, please let me get it off around the house. And I know that's all she's thinking about. And she's like, Mom, I understand how you felt. And I think sometimes that's just so gratifying, even if you just see it in little glimpses. Not gratifying that she feels like that, but it's so nice if your kids get to different points in parenting or life or oh, now I know how my parents felt. Now I know why they reacted the way they did. Now I know why that made that decision, because you just sometimes can't understand it until you're in it.
Well, it just feels so good to be understood. I know that just having talks with my son, he'll talk about missing John and I'll say, "Do you remember this time when this happened?" It was usually when the son did something stupid and John reacted, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can totally understand why Dad thought that." He goes, "He probably should have been even harder." It's just so funny to hear them say things that that they totally get just with a little age, just with a little experience, with some maturity.
Yeah. So. One of the bright spots of being the ages that we are is seeing our parents as people more and more and more. And even one of the gifts we were given this last year was my parents moving in for 4 months. We've always been separated by distance. And so it was actually a gift for Bryce and I to have them in our home on a daily basis for 4 months. We've never had that. It was really a gift in a season of pain with my grandfather being on hospice care. And so I just felt like I got to see my mom and dad in a light that I've never seen them. And I really loved it. So I see it was such a gift to have them that it was so precious in a season of pain. And so that's one of the gifts of getting older and seeing our parents in that light and understanding, why they made decisions that they did, and just being really thankful for their love.
Yeah. All right, frame of reference. It's so important.
Well, and I love how she said, it's easy to not choose to understand the other person's point of view, but if you can, I don't know, I hate this term. She said, be the bigger person, like you're comparing, but just to have grace and understanding that's what draws people to you. And I love this quote. She said, anytime you improve yourself, it's going to improve all your relationships.
Right.
And that is true.
It's a gift that you can give somebody else to truly seek to understand them. So it's nice when it just dawns on you. And it's also nice if you just, even though you're maybe not that age or in that situation, if you can kind of seek to put yourself in someone else's shoes, like why they might be upset about something, or why they might be mourning something, or why they might be crying, or why they might, I might not be in the same situation, but I can still seek to understand them.
Definitely gives compassion and closer relationship.
She says that. See your family with compassion. And then the let me part of this is to focus on what kind of relationship you want to create with the people in your life based on the kind of person that you want to be.
Well, I thought these 2 chapters were really good. I mean, they were hard topics, but I felt like the content itself was helpful and a good reminder and made me think about a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. After it slapped me around a little bit.
All right, listeners, we would love to know if you are reading the Let Them theory, or even if you're just listening along each month, we'd love to know what you think of what we talked about today. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of a simple marinade. We were wanting to make grilled chicken the other night, and we've always used the mesquite grilled chicken. What we've talked about, Marie, the McCormick Grill Mates. Okay, they were out of the mesquite flavor, so I had to pick a different one. Boy, am I glad I did.
Oh.
I chose the McCormick Grill Mates Hawaiian style barbecue marinade. Let me tell you, that was so good. This is our new favorite marinade for chicken. It has kind of a barbecue flavor, but it's got a little pineapple flavor
That
in
sounds
it.
good.
It was like the perfect summer flavor. So if you're looking for a simple marinade for chicken, I highly recommend this. So I'll share the link for it and everything. Very simply done, easy, all that. So my new
Yeah,
favorite.
that sounds good. So it was actually good that they were out of your other one.
Yes, it made me branch out, and I'm glad I did.
Okay. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm also a fan of a recipe that I tried last night, and both my mom and David loved it. And I don't often hear, "Mom, this is great. I love it," from both of them. Usually it's like one or the other,
Mm.
So I think they were a little nervous. It's like 5:30 and I'm just getting raw chicken out of the refrigerator. So
Wow, that's brave.
but it was an Instapot recipe, which I forget about using. I stick it under the counter and forget about it. It's chicken burrito bowls. So you put the chicken with a little broth in the bottom, and then you add corn and black beans and taco seasoning, and then a whole red bell pepper, and a whole green bell pepper sliced, and a sliced onion. And
Wow.
then you put a cup of rice on that and more broth, and high pressure for 8 minutes. Let it depressurize for 10, and then you shred the chicken and it's ready to go. I mean, it was the easiest meal. And unfortunately, I only used 2 chicken breasts and I cut them in half to make 4, smaller breasts. And I halved the rice. I think it said 2 cups. I did 1. It just grew. So we still have more to eat than we even ate last night. So for big families or for a group, it would be really a good choice.
Yeah.
Wow,
And
sounds delicious.
so we added chips and cheese and cilantro and sour cream and all that.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. And so easy. I put it on and went out and did some yard work and came back in and it was ready. So
Wow. That would be a good one. I have not made something in my Instapot
I know.
in probably well over a year. So
Me too. I just forget about it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this thing?
yeah. We'll have to check that one out. I'll put a link in our show notes. All right. This week, I'm a fan of some light bulbs. So I had my dad put a dimmer in the kitchen, and that was great. But I really wanted a dimmer in my living room, too. But I could tell that he either doesn't think it's possible or doesn't want to mess with it because it's just got 3 things you can turn on from that one part. And I could tell I didn't press him on it because I felt like he'd already done the one dimmer, so I'll wait and press him on it later. But in the meantime, I was like, I can't have a dimmer, so what could I do? So I thought, what are the lowest watt bulbs that I could get? And 15 was even going to be too much. I think I even had 15 there, but 15 times 5 is 75. That's still more light than I wanted. So I went on Amazon and started looking, and I found these Creative Hobbies replacement light bulbs for electric candle lamps, window candles, and chandeliers. Jackpot, they're for chandeliers. Okay, 7 watts a bulb. 7 watts times 5. That's only 35 watts total.
Do they have the little silicone on them or are they just the glass bulb?
Just glass.
Okay.
So only 35 watts total. So now if you turn the light on, it cannot be any stronger than 35 watts. But that's totally fine with me. I'm not using it for light. I was only using it because you had a light fixture there in the ceiling. You have to put something there. And if someone turns on the light, I don't want this glaring, garish light.
And we know, don't turn on the overhead light. Right. That's the rule.
But if it is turned on, it will only go up to 35.
Marie's getting smarter.
You're still in a dark room, even though you turn it on.
That's right.
If you also want just soothing, soft light, I will put a link in our show notes, and you have a chandelier, you can get 7 watt bulbs. I didn't find anything lower than 7 watts that would have fit my chandelier.
If you want soothing light that your family can't defy.
There you go.
These are the bulbs for you. No, I probably want some of those now.
Okay. Steve is always like, "Can we have some more light?" Sure, turn on the chandelier. No.
Right.
You can have 35 more watts.
These are the options, 0 or 35.
You need to get Steve a headlamp.
I know.
Oh, God.
Well, I enjoyed talking about the let them theory. Every month we're learning something,
Yes.
and we are getting better.
Maybe.
Painful or not.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Sounds great.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.